Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so excited we're spending this time today. Our first guest is Shannon Kaiser, and she's here today to talk to us about her book, The Self-Love Experiment. So welcome to the show, Shannon.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Hey, it's so great to have you here. Now, gosh, what an amazing book, The Self-Love Experiment. I've seen your book trailer. Oh, it grabs at your heart. I love it.
Oh, thank you so much. I kind of feel like I wanted to make it so it felt like you were wrapped with a blanket, like feeling loved, because that's really what the self-love experiment and the journey is.
Well, and I think a lot of people, we hear about self-love a lot, and people are kind of like, I've read the books, been there, but I'm still not feeling like I connect, or that, that self-love really is for me. Why don't you share with us a little bit about your journey? What brought you to creating these apps? Because you've got many other books too, but these fabulous book series that you've been doing.
Yeah, and I think it's important to start there because self-love is kind of this word. It gets thrown around a lot, and I used to hear it too. And I was like, oh, that sounds really nice, but it's definitely not for me. Is self-love selfish? I don't want to be egotistical. So I actually kind of tried to stay away from it for many, many years. But secretly, I was suffering from eating disorders. I would cry myself to sleep every night. I was also suffering from depression. And it was just this really dark, toxic place because I didn't love myself and I didn't even know what that meant. And so I decided to really go on an inward journey. And the turning point for me was actually when I was promoting my first book several years ago. I was going on a promotional tour. The first book's called Find Your Happy. And I was teaching the tools and sharing how to be happy. And I was getting ready to go on a morning television show and share, this is how you be happy. But the night before, I was crying and looking in the mirror, and I couldn't say one good thing about myself. And that's when I realized, oh, my gosh, how happy can we really be if we don't accept ourselves, if we don't even like who we are? And that's what turned into the self-love experiment. I went on what started as, I thought, a 3-month journey, turned into like this glorious 3-year journey to help me really understand how to love and care and appreciate myself. And I can tell you today, it's turned into a book, of course, but I am so in love with myself and my life, and it's my mission to help others.
I think, and what a great place to come from. I think a lot of people can relate to how you're feeling, just because it's so easy to look at our bodies or look at our bank accounts or, look at our outside circumstances and go, gosh, I wish things were this, or everything would be more perfect if I just had that,
Yeah, and I thought about this too, because in my own life, it was always that number on the scale. When I lose this weight, then I can start dating again, or when I hit my goal weight. And there was so much pressure, and I blamed my body for everything. Throughout my whole life, almost 3 decades, I didn't make the dance team in high school. I blamed my body. And I didn't really know I was doing this, but that's part of my self-hate and the kind of mental negative chatter that I wasn't good enough. And I think what I talk about in my book is I call it the almost paradise syndrome. It's where we do this in lots of different layers of our life. Oh, when I have more money, then I can travel again. Or when I fix my teeth, then I can start dating again. Or all these goals we put on hold because we think we're not good enough now. And it's really the reverse. And that's what the process of learning how to, care for yourself really transforms your life to recognize that our life is happening right now, and we can start to, as we are, I'm still an overweight woman, but I don't let that stop me. I'm still showing up, and that's really what the point of it is to show up as you are, because you are enough.
I think a lot of people do put these limitations on their life, saying, you know what, I would go out to this dinner event only if I, was a little thinner, or my skin was better, or I was smarter, or I had more money and I had better clothes, or whatever the deal is. And it's so easy to put these outside labels in regards, and to just, they're just really barriers. And I love how you talk about like the beauty breakdown in your book. And I was shocked by the number, not only by what people think about themselves, but the statistics that go along with that.
Yeah, in doing research, I discovered 6 out of 10 people opt out of activities they really want to do because of what you were just saying, the insecurities or the the flaws that we think are blocking us. And it's crazy because I thought it was just me. I really did. For so many, many years, I was suffering silently. And I think that's really what the beautiful part about creating your own self-love experiment is realizing you're not alone. And we really can make a difference when we share and come together as a group and recognize your insecurities and flaws don't have to stop you. You can step forward and really take the steps to live your life now.
Well, it's interesting what most people would consider like a flaw. Other people are so busy paying attention to our attributes that they never even see the things that we are singularly focused on, you know?
I so love that you say that. I really do, because I think, we're in our heads and we live with ourselves. And a lot of times that gets amplified and we focus on our crooked nose or our, whatever it is that we're feeling is horrible about ourselves. But most of the time, that thing we hate the most, no one else ever notices. I have a really good friend who doesn't want to date until she fixes her teeth. And I'm like, I look at her and I think her smile is beautiful. I don't notice her. I don't see what she sees. And I think in recognizing that, one of my goals for creating the self-love experiment was I had 3 goals when I originally started. One was to be more kind to myself when I looked in the mirror. Can I learn how to say kind things to myself instead of being my own enemy? And then I also wanted to lighten up. I was taking things so seriously. Like you said, I like many women and people, I would go out to eat and I wasn't present with my friends because I was so worried about the next bite I took. That would put me over my calorie limit and I'd have to work out more tomorrow. And it was this obsessive kind of focus that was keeping me from being present. And then the third was, can I learn how to love myself the way my dog does? Or, if you have children, the people who love you for you, they don't see your flaws. And truly that's what the self-love experiment gave me, that those goals were manifested.
Yeah, because that's one thing, is like that inner critic. It's hard enough when we've got society saying that we need to look and act and be a certain way, but then that inner critic just kind of reinforces all of that. Is it possible to remove that bad boy inner critic? I
think it's a beautiful question. I think a lot of us come to books and coaching and beautiful radio shows like this wanting to be fixed, and we want to have all the things that are bothering us removed. And I truly believe that is what's hindering us, thinking that those things are bad, keeps them perpetuating in our life. What I truly learned is that everything has its place. It's part of the human experience. But what we can do is learn how to transform it into a more loving voice. So just a couple of weeks before I started to go on book tour, this is my 4th book. I've written many books and I coach and lead retreats all around the world. But my self-doubt started to come in and it was so enormous. And here I am, a teacher on this. And I recognized that the self-doubt was simply just, I'm at the next stage of my life. This is a new topic I'm talking about and opening up on a deeper level. And the self-doubt was just simply, it's the ego. It's the fear in our head. And when you can address it and say, hey, why are you here, man? Hey, buddy. It's not really a buddy, but when you can kind of, when you can kind of be, like I said, lighten up a little bit about it. It said, are you sure you don't want to stay small? Are you sure? And it's just that the role of this doubt, the role of our inner critic is to protect us. It doesn't know what it doesn't know. And so what we can do is come back to our heart and realign and let your heart lead forward and almost teach your mind. And then, within a couple minutes, my self-doubt subsided. But there were times in my life where I would have canceled events because the self-doubt or, the insecurity was so loud. So I don't think we need to focus on getting rid of it, but we can learn how to work with it and transform it into love.
And have it be something that actually works for our benefit as opposed to trying to stomp it out.
Yeah, because it's, it's part of being human, really.
It's going to be there to some degree, but it's, it's definitely not where it's running rampant and running the show.
Yes, that's the key, to really not run the show.
Well, and I know a lot of people, in your book you talk about you're at this point where you're just waiting for real life to begin. And I know a lot of people feel that way. They're like, okay, I finished school and now I've got this job and I just don't feel like I've arrived. How did things shift for you that you went from being in that place to being where you are now?
That's such a beautiful question because I realized, I had written 3 books, and when I first sat down to write the self-love experiment, I had recognized, like I said in that opening passage, wow, I'm living the life that I thought I wanted, but I'm still waiting for tomorrow. I'm still waiting. And the shift for me really came by starting to look at everything in my life as a glorious adventure. And what I mean by that is I started to experiment. Because what I was doing before was everything I did, I would put expectations on it. So, I'm going to go to school so I can get a great job. I'm going to start dating more so I can find my soulmate. Like all of these things, there's so much pressure on just living. I'm going to start this diet so I can meet my goal weight. Oh, didn't meet my goal weight. Blame and guilt set in. Mm-hmm. And I decided to transform it by saying, okay, I'm going to do the best I can today with what I know today. And that's enough. That's going to have to be enough. And I started to do little activities like journaling as a writer, of course, but I like to talk to my present self, my future self, and my younger self. So one of the tools I share that transformed really me was I wrote a letter to my pain point, and I said, hey, overweight stomach that I can't seem to get rid of, why are you here? What are you trying to teach me? And I started to be more present with every single pocket of my life. And, I let my inner voice come forward, and it said, I'm here to show you you're lovable, no matter what. You aren't the number on the scale. You aren't the bank account number. You aren't where you live. And I think that's really the gift that the self-love experiment can offer to us. We are so much more than what we think and put, where we kind of pigeonhole ourselves.
And it's really easy for people to do that. I've known people who are in excellent health, and they're just like, well, if I just lost, 3 more pounds, I'd be perfect.
Right.
There's that constant drive, and really there's a lot to be said for being in that present moment and just not really, it's really like you talk about the shame and the blame and the guilt and all that kind of stuff, because that does come with those kind of discussions, that inner critic discussion, and being able to just be in the present moment and be happy and okay with what is. It's like, well, this is what it is today. Not going to be like this forever. It's probably just a season. Right.
I love that you say that, because I think there's a little bit of misconception where people are like, oh, are you just giving up and, settling? And really, when you come to an arrival of self-love, you start to care about yourself so much that the changes you want to make in your life, the difference is they're not from a place of hate or blame. Before, if somebody's in perfect health, I know many women like this, and they're like, I need to just lose weight, just that extra 2 pounds. And it's like, you're gorgeous. But when we love ourselves, we recognize that as we are right now, this is who I am today. I accept myself, and I'm going to do the best I can to take care of myself and love myself and show up for myself. And from that place, you start to manifest whatever it is you want with more grace, with more ease.
It all kind of flows together. In your book, you have a quote that I just love, and it really stood out for me. It's, all of our personal experience can become our greatest teachers for optimum growth. We evolve according to our reaction to each other. And that was such a profound statement. I don't think,
thank you.
For me, it just really jumped off the page, and and it made me take pause for a moment and think about what that really means. Because if we look back on our experiences, sometimes we look back and we're like, oh gosh, how am I growing from that?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah, and then have it be the teacher,
Right. I think that was also one of the ways when you ask, how did you go from self-hate to loving yourself? It's kind of when I made that shift to recognize that every single thing in my life had a purpose. And, the eating disorders, the depression, the corporate burnout, while you're in it and when you're in it suffering, it's almost impossible to say, oh, what's the bigger picture here? But when we keep knowing and aligning with this has an opportunity to be my greatest teacher. And then we, like I said, we evolve according to our reaction. And so it's not so much about going through the experience right now, but how are you reacting to it or allowing it to be so you can move through it faster or heal from the situation. And you look back on your life, from year to year, from decade to decade, we start to see wow, I'm doing a lot better. If this situation, I had a life coaching client the other day. She got in like this accident in a car. It was just a downward spiral all day. And she said, 2 years ago, if this happened, I would have been pissed. I would have been like, the world is happening to me. But yesterday when it happened, I felt like, okay, this is what's happening. And she didn't overreact. She just allowed it to be part of her experience. And that's huge growth for any of us, no matter what the situation is,
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, when we get to that place where we can kind of, stand back and see the bigger picture, I mean, it's really interesting. I was actually having a discussion with somebody about this the other day, and your book came up, and it's just interesting how we don't really plan for these kind of things, but without having these types of experiences, it really doesn't make the person who is us. We'd be missing a piece of our dynamic selves,
Yes, I love that part, because we are who we are, and we're just, all of the experiences helped us become who we really want to be.
What a delicious place to be in. I mean, I look back and I'm going, gosh, none of this made sense. It looked like I was walking the crooked road, to get to where I'm at.
But now look, it's amazing.
But at the same time, I wouldn't change anything, because all of those experiences are now gives me a different level of understanding than I think what I would have had without them. So
yeah, absolutely.
And I know in your book you talk about self-care. So that's another term that gets thrown around quite a bit. When we talk about self-care, what are you talking about?
Yeah, so it's interesting, because this was actually one of the pillars, so to speak, of self-love. Self-love, when I first started, felt so far off. I was like, I can't even say one good thing about myself. So I decided to start with self-care, bottom, basic. And what I learned and realized is self-care is not what maybe the wellness industry will try to tell us, or society. It's not having yoga every single day, counting your calories, drinking your green juice. For some, that may work. For me, many years, it caused depression, eating disorders, and extreme self-hate. What I realized is self-care is about doing what brings you joy in each moment, knowing that you're taking care of yourself from a nurturing place. Much like a mother and her child, or someone you love very much, you care so much about them that you want the best for them. And this was like a radical change for me, because I was doing the 30-day hot yoga challenges and counting all my calories, and I really got honest with myself, and I'm like, I'm super burnt out on yoga. Like, I would rather go for a nature walk, or I really don't want one more green juice smoothie. I'm ready for, just natural water or whatever. So it really is about getting honest with yourself and saying, why am I doing this? Is this because I feel like I have to? Everyone in my community is going to spinning, or whatever it may be. Or does it really bring me joy? And I started to align everything with joy, and now I feel healthier than I've ever been.
Well, I think when we do things that make us passionate about just life in general, I mean, what a great place to come from. Because I know a lot of people who just throughout their daily lives are absolutely miserable with the things that they have to do, whether it be their work or things, just responsibilities. So looking at what brings you joy throughout the day, even if maybe your job doesn't bring you joy, looking for those bits of time throughout the day where you can find that. I mean, what a fabulous place to be in.
Yeah, I think that's so key, too, that you brought up, kind of being in a job that might not bring us joy, because I suffered many years in corporate. And the change for me, the shift was really, instead of looking at it as, I hate this, I feel so stuck, I'm trapped, I started to many moments throughout the day say and look for the joy, and started to turn it to appreciation. I appreciate this person, my one friend here, or I appreciate the project I just worked on, even though, whatever it may be. So I think joy and appreciation really do a beautiful dance together. They're really kind of partners in being happier and more aligned with ourselves.
Well, and I know that you're really big on play and community as well, because you really and kind of incorporate those components in everything that it is that you do.
I do think that both play, being playful within our hearts, and so it's not taking everything so seriously, but also recognizing, just like a child doesn't judge, a child doesn't know all of the anger. You know, a child really is in this wonderment, this awe, this excitement. And so the goal is, as adults or whatever age, is for us to really allow ourselves to be in that part of life, because in that place, really miracles can happen. I truly believe that I found self-love by approaching it as an experiment instead of something that had to be done. And that's really important. And then, of course, community with my website, Play with the World, and my Facebook community. Everything I do is really us. It's not, I'm doing this experiment, but here I am sharing it because I believe when we share and open up, and even if you're just sitting with a girlfriend having tea, or you're sharing with, you know, your husband or someone, the sharing, it truly is, it rhymes here, but it's caring, and it's opening you up, and connection is so important right now on the planet and just in life. It's important. Helps you feel heard and seen.
And I know in your book you give, and we don't want to give them all away, but you do give some tips for self-care. What are like one or two that we could just implement in our daily lives? Because, you know, I know people are, of course, going to go pick up your book, The Self-Love Experiment. And for our listeners now that just want to say, hey, you know, I just heard this and I want to start doing something right now, what would you suggest?
Yes. You know, the first thing I would really do is say, look in the mirror and compliment yourself. It can be very hard at first if we're coming from a place of extreme self-hate, or maybe you're already doing it. But just looking at yourself and starting to recognize yourself as a friend is this, you know, really radical concept that we can do. And then another tool that I think could be really empowering is to, again, return to the joy. Think about, is this bringing me joy, or am I doing it out of obligation? Now, of course, a lot of us have obligations with family and stuff, but then it becomes, can I find the joy in this moment? Because all of that is very caring for yourself. It's very nurturing. And then I would say, third tip maybe, listen to your body. Sometimes we feel like we have to do things. And for just to demonstrate an example, one of my best friends, her son was having a birthday party. This is a couple of years ago. And I wanted to go so bad, but my body was so tired. And I ended up saying, I'm sorry, I'm not going to come, which normally, you know, you're the aunt, you're supposed to come, all these things. But I ended up sleeping for 4 hours that day. My body needed rest, and that was an important part of me honoring myself.
Well, and I think it's important to get those cues from your body and say, hey, you know, this is what I'm going to do, you know, as opposed to getting kind of bogged down with the shoulda, coulda, woulda kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, shoulda, coulda. I say like we should all over ourselves. Like I should do this, and you know, I should go in this. But then what happens is we're not fully present or able to be there. If our ultimate goal truly is to help and love others, and because you know we have big hearts, we want to be there. We have to really start with ourselves because we can't fully be there. If I would have gone to that party, I would have, you know, been tired. I would have been resentful secretly, all these things. So it really is coming back to you and being honest with yourself about what you need when you need it. And community, like you said, follow through is so important.
Well, and I know I'm kind of skipping around here, but there was so much in your book that I found to be so compelling, and it had such great advice. You know, you talked about, and there's a quote in your book that says, I'm probably going to not get it exactly right, but you talk about how there's an outcome of fear when you're feeling that, to take no action, otherwise you will get the result of fear, which makes perfect sense, and I don't think anyone has ever kind of addressed it that way before. You know, we talk about what you reap, you know, what you sow, you'll reap kind of thing, but at the same time, we never look at it in that kind of a capacity. So if someone is fearful, like about a situation or action to take, what do you suggest?
So I think there's two parts to this. There's, if we are in fear and we don't do anything, then we will manifest more of the situation that we don't want, because your fear is kind of, you know, ruling it. But then there's also the side of it there. If you're in fear, until you can, I almost say, like vibrate yourself into a place that's a little more loving, then you can move forward. So this can go in any situation in our life, like a heavier situation such as, should I get a divorce, or should I, you know, move across the world, to something as simple as spending money. If you have a lot of fear around money and you tend to overspend, or you're in debt and there's a lot of focus on the negative. When I really left corporate, I didn't know how to make money as a writer, so I was in a lot of fear, changing careers. And I recognized that how I felt with my money was important. So when I wrote a check, if I was in fear or frustrated, that actually manifested more debt. So I changed it, and I started to kiss every check. I know Louise Hay talks about this too, with, changing your energy. And then when I would buy my morning coffee or whatever it may be, I put myself in a place of gratitude. So everything is energy. Money can be energy when we really love it. And it really is about love. So get yourself into a place of appreciation and love, and then you take a step. Whoa, miracles, awesome stuff can happen for you.
And that's exactly where you want to be, and not just in an emotional state, but it puts you in the right place, as you're saying, for miracles to happen, for those shifts to take place.
Yes, I think that's the key too. It's about the shift. It's not, again, I really want to not lead anyone to think I'm going to do this and then this will happen. It's really about just being in the place of pure joy, pure awe, pure appreciation, because from there we start to flow. Our life starts, and I say this in my book too, the more you show, the more your life will flow, meaning the more authentic you are with yourself, the more honest you are with yourself, the easier your life will be.
Mm. Yeah, and and it doesn't have to be such a struggle. I know also in your book you talk about when we're kind of, feeling the struggle and feeling that push, that we're coming up against something.
Mhm. Yeah, I do think that that's important to recognize. Is, you said it best. It doesn't have to be such a struggle, but some of us learn really well through struggle. I know for many, many years I suffered so much because that's all I knew. And I think a lot of us too, we focus so much on what's not working. But when we can shift our attention to what is working or what we want, then instead of letting the fear come in and say, well, you can't get that because it costs money, or how dare you think you go after that? Remember, that's your self-doubt and fear. It's really about being aware of that, shifting that to a more loving thought, and just saying, okay, well, what can I do today? I might not be able to know where I'm going to be in a year, but one step at a time today, what can I do? From a guided, loving place that can move us forward as well.
Now, would that be the same advice you would give somebody if they feel like they're just behind in life or off track, or it's just not where they should be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Because I felt that way. I remember just when I would cry myself to sleep every night, I would be like, I feel so off track. I'm looking outside at everyone else. And I think that's the key too, is a lot of times we look outside of ourselves at what other people are doing. And we can't help it. We kind of, do I measure up, or they're farther along? But first recognize that we belong, and we have a voice, and we have a purpose. Sometimes when we don't feel worthy or we don't feel good enough, that's just self-doubt and the ego and your inner fear kind of amplifying itself. But really, when we return to love, as simple as, like, if you're listening right now, take your hand, put it on your heart right now. And as you do that, I'm doing that too, you feel a connection back to your true self. You feel like you're bringing your energy back. And as we do this, we start to realize that, I actually am where I need to be to get to where I want to go. And that's I'm a big believer in affirmations, positive thoughts and mantras. They're throughout the book as well. And one of the best ones that helped me stop feeling off track is, I'm right where I need to be to get to where I want to go.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
You can totally feel how that shifts the energy,
Yeah. And, the affirmations, I used to write them on pieces of paper, put them on my mirror. You can fall asleep doing them, but it feels good.
Mhm. And it really helps get you in that frame of mind, instead of feeling like, gosh, I'm missing out, or I should be doing this, or I should be this far in my career by now, or have lost this much weight, or
exactly.
have managed my depression this much better. I'm still depressed. Whatever the case is, it allows people to kind of just be okay with where they are and take those baby steps to move forward.
Yeah, much more loving place to be, for sure.
Without a doubt. Now, with all of this, everything that because you've gained some just great information. You're such a great writer. What have been some of the surprising things that you have learned along your journey?
Oh, wonderful question. You know, interesting enough, I think there's a couple things that really come about, and I think for me, writing is healing. And so I wrote the self-love experiment, and the most surprising thing is I believe this book saved my life because I was in such a dark place in my mind before, and I hated myself, yet it looked like I had it together, right? Good career and everything. Mm-hmm. But what I did was I showed up for the process. And, you know, I say in the book, too, this is the 5th draft of the book. I've had some people be like, well, why didn't you just stop writing the book? Like, why did you keep going? And I think that that is the thing that is the most important for all of us as a metaphor for really tuning in to you showing up. And so the most surprising thing that for me really is about learning how to trust and believe in myself and know, you know, I used to spend so much time looking outside of myself and trying to be seen. And the self-love experiment gave me the gift of seeing myself. And so as I do that, I put it in a book now, and it becomes, you know, a gift for the readers. And I think that that, in the most basic part, is to show up for yourself so you can heal yourself. And when you do that, you can then heal others. And that's how we can help change the world.
One step at a time, you know?
Yeah, and, exactly.
Gosh, how beautiful is that? Well, you know, Shannon, I'm so delighted we were able to spend this time here. You are such an inspiration and such a resource for people who are looking to bring more love and compassion and acceptance into their life. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community? And I did hear that you do coaching. What type of coaching do you do?
I do, yes. So Play with the World is my website. You can definitely go to playwiththeworld.com. And there's events. I'm going to be in New York for the book tour. I also have a self-love retreat in Canada in November, and there's still a few spots available. And the coaching that I do life coaching, but I also do an author mentorship and a business entrepreneurship to help people kind of get to the next level. And so on my website are different packages and all of the avenues if you want to work one-on-one with me. I also do group coaching. All that you can find on my website. Along with your book, The Self-Love Experiment. You know what, Shannon, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today. Thank you. It's been amazing being here. Oh, it's just been so fabulous to spend this time with you. I was so excited that we were going to be able to have this talk, and looking forward to seeing what comes off your writer's shelf next. Yeah, thank you so much. I can't wait to share with you. Already working on it. Well, we'll be watching you. Oh, thank you. Big hugs to you. Thank you. Yeah. We are going to pause here for a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 1-2-3 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
Ben Wexler is a gifted leadership development and strategy consultant for professionals who want to transform their organizations and careers. Through a uniquely personalized set of processes, participants discover their unique knowledge, how to leverage that knowledge and experience, and then put it all together with a global strategy. You're more valuable, your organization is more valuable, and the change is viral. Contact Ben at 630-881-1074. 630-881-1074.
This is Jennifer McGill. My highly anticipated new album, Unbreakable, is now available at jennifermcgill.com. Everything from power ballads to high-energy jam-out-in-your-car songs. I used my highest joys and deepest pains to create empowering songs of love, strength, healing, and restoration so that you can be unbreakable too. Get your copy of Unbreakable today from jennifermcgill.com. 'Cause who doesn't want to be unbreakable?
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. Have you been diagnosed with a cancer or know someone that's been diagnosed with a cancer and you're just not sure which way to turn? Our next guest, Heidi Bright, is here today to talk to us about her book, Thriver Soup, which is a huge resource for people who have been diagnosed with cancer and they're looking to live consciously. So let's welcome to the show, Heidi.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, what a joy it is to have you here, Heidi. Now, gosh, your book really talks about your journey of going through cancer.
Thriver Soup, yes. It's not really about my journey through cancer. It's a toolbox for other people who are going through cancer so that they can have many, many healing options and solutions that they won't get ordinarily. So it's like a toolbox.
Yeah, it's things that you've learned along your own journey?
Yes, I did a lot of research. The back has all the resources that I used, and I read dozens of books, tons of stuff online, research articles, because I wanted to find the best healing solutions for me. And when I got done with my own healing journey, my friends came to me and said, you've got to use your journalism background to write a book to give other people these ideas and things that you learned. So that's how my book was born. It's called Thriver Soup.
Thriver Soup.
A feast for living consciously during the cancer journey.
Now, for our listeners that are new to your story, you went through a very rare type of cancer. Why don't you share with us a little bit about the journey you went through?
It all began for me in 2009. I was sitting in the oncologist's office, and I got the paralyzing message that there was no cure for this type of and stage of uterine cancer. And, of course, I was terrified and in shock. I didn't even know what to ask. It was already considered terminal with the most aggressive kind of cells. It was like, oh, my gosh, my life is over. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know what a sarcoma was when this whole thing started. And my first real fear was, as a mother, what was going to happen to my kids? At that point, I knew I needed to do absolutely everything I could to survive. Everything the doctor suggested and much, much more. So I spent the next 2 years I did 42 days of chemotherapy infusions. I had 3 major surgeries. And the cancer, despite everything I was doing, it was just relentless. It just kept coming back and coming back and coming back. But also during those 2 years, I did a lot of integrative things. I tried all kinds of healing solutions that I read about that I felt were reasonable. I healed my heart and my mind. I changed my attitudes, my behaviors, and made major life changes. And after my 3rd major surgery, I went to my post-op appointment, and the nurse practitioner said, I see this all the time. I've been doing this for 3 decades. You need to get back on chemo. And I said, there is no more chemo. This is a very rare uterine sarcoma. They're out of options for me. Mm-hmm. And she said, then you need to go home and get your affairs in order. I felt like I was struck in the head. It was like she was sending me home to die.
Yeah.
Well, but Marianne, my next scan was clear. And my next scan was clear. And my next scan was clear. I've been free of evidence of disease and free of all cancer treatment for 6 years now.
Oh, good for you. And that's pretty amazing. A journey. That's such a journey. I mean, I've had a cancer scare myself, probably like 15, 20 years ago. And it kind of, it's like for me, there was a period of time before they did the testing to see if it was cancer or not. And so it was just really, it just kind of made everything come to a screeching halt, basically.
It does. Has a way of doing that, yes. Mm-hmm. It's terrifying. You feel like your whole life is on the line.
Yeah,
and often it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's some major things that have to take place that have to happen. You're just like, come on, let's get some answers here. Let's figure this out. And it must have been, I couldn't even imagine how it must feel when the medical community has like basically given up on you. But it sounds like during this whole journey, you never gave up on yourself.
I did not. I felt sometimes that there was no hope and I was going to pass. And I had to face that. But I also was seeing a psychotherapist. One of the first things my sister said to do after I was diagnosed, she said, get thee to a therapist. So I did. And my therapist was one of the people who saved my life because she taught me how to manage the emotions of a cancer experience. And I have a whole section in my book about how to manage the emotions. I think that's critical. A lot of patients are told that they're supposed to have a positive attitude and that's going to help them. Well, when you have cancer growing in your body and the chemotherapy isn't working and they can't get it surgically, being positive is probably not going to be real helpful. I think being realistic and authentic is much more helpful because then it allows you to experience the emotions of your situation and then deal effectively with those emotions in a way that they don't overwhelm and so that we don't end up repressing them, but dealing with them as they are. And that gave me a tremendous amount of freedom and courage and a good attitude, not a positive attitude, but a good attitude. And I think that was instrumental in my healing. I'm talking about healing my life, not curing the cancer. When we heal our lives, that gives rise to life force energy in our bodies, and that can bring healing into our bodies. And sometimes the body can shed the illness. Doesn't always happen, but it can help us at least feel better.
So during this, from the time that you had the nurse send you home and say, get your affairs in order, which is, basically, just get ready for the end, what was the major shift that then had everything turning up clear for you?
I realized that I had to make some major changes in my life. And one of them was to leave my marriage. And another was to make sure that I did everything I could to take care of my own needs, whatever that took, and to do everything I could to get rid of stress in my life. And that, plus all the things I had been doing on my own those 2 years, I think the cumulative effect is what helped my body to shed the illness. And one of the things I talk about in the talks that I give when I give presentations is making a major life choice. I think that's really important, that we look at our lives and see if there's something that needs to shift in a major way to give our bodies a chance to heal. It can be leaving a toxic relationship. It can be leaving a toxic job. It can be making approaching the dis-ease from every angle. I had a friend with breast cancer. She was stage 4, and she was running out of time. And we had a lunch together, and I suggested that she stop her relationship with her mother because that was the toxic relationship for her. Mm-hmm. And she did. And it was very difficult for her, but she completely stopped the relationship for 6 months. And during those 6 months, the cancer stopped growing. And then she opened the door again to her mother, and 9 months later, she passed and left a 16-year-old daughter. And I think that if we can figure out what that critical key is, that existential shift that we need to make to heal our lives, then that can allow the body to recover at least somewhat, maybe stop the progression, maybe even heal the body enough to get rid of the cancer. I'm not saying cure, I'm just saying get rid of the evidence of disease.
Well, and it sounds like, from your journey that a lot of it is about also coming into peace with yourself, being able to have that peace. So regardless which direction the journey goes, that, ultimately we're okay with it.
Yes. And that's hard to do because death is terrifying. And being sick all the time is not only debilitating, it's demoralizing and depressing. And if we can heal our lives, and that's what the majority of my book is about, ways to heal our lives, then we free ourselves up emotionally, and that helps the body. It relaxes things. It gets rid of stress. It's extremely useful. I can give an example. Would you like me to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
We want all the info.
Okay. A chronic diagnosis like cancer can produce symptoms like PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and stress can be an everyday reality when you're dealing with a chronic disease. And I learned how to manage stress through prayer and meditation, along with the emotional healing. And I share a lot of these tips in Thriver Soup. I have a section on spirituality and how to develop a spiritual practice that is suitable for you. For example, Judy is single and she lives in Denver, and she knew that her cancer was more of a spiritual crisis than a physical crisis. And her problem was questioning the very existence of a God. How could God be called a God of love or a God of mercy and then have people dying horrible deaths from cancer? Well, the solution for her was reading through Thriver Soup, the different meditation practices, and she found a meditation practice in Thriver Soup that she really liked. And it's a very simple one. It's keeping the spine straight, putting the hands upward to be in a receptive mode, asking for fears and doubts to be lifted, asking for healing and trust and faith to fill us, and then stopping the thinking and focusing on the sensations in the body for 10 minutes every morning and 10 minutes every evening. And she found that she was able to let go of the questioning that she was doing. She was able to set aside the mental aspects of spirituality and focus on the physical aspects of spirituality. She was able to let go of a lot of stress that way, and she had a lot more inner peace. Another way of managing a difficult diagnosis that creates a lot of worry is to let go of the worry, and I explain how to do that in the book. There's a lot of information about that in there, but the main idea is when we are afraid of something and we're thinking about what we're afraid of, then we drop into worry. Worry is a mood of thinking about what we're afraid of. The key is to stop the thinking and get into the body and experience the sensation of fear. So when somebody is feeling fear in their body, you might feel butterflies in their stomach. They might feel sick in their stomach. But if they can simply focus in on that sensation and let go of the thinking that accompanies it, then after 90 seconds, that sensation will most likely lift. Now, if the person starts thinking again about what they're afraid of, then the body sensations start up again, and the process of stopping the thinking and focusing on the sensations can be repeated. I have done this sometimes for more than an hour at a time, but when I get done, the fear lifts, and I'm free of it, and I can go on with my day. Grace is somebody who's a Thriver Soup reader, and she's in her 70s and lives in the retirement community. And she was having trouble with anxiety attacks because she had a diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. She was having difficulty going up and down stairs, and she was doing a lot of shaking. And her solution in Thriver Soup, I'll just read to you what she wrote because it's been very helpful for her. She writes, one section had to do with anxiety and how to handle my fears. Thriver Soup suggests feeling my feelings, actually experiencing the sensations in my body, and to just let them be. Eventually the emotions receded. I felt such gratitude for this practice. These suggestions turned out to be an invaluable aid to me. She applied this practice to her life, and she found that she had, because she was putting less energy into the anxiety and the worry and putting more energy into who she was and what she needed, she had energy to do more exercising, to take better care of her diet. And as a result of that, she has less shaking, and she's taking stairs with greater ease now. So this process really worked for her.
Well, and I know that, and can I backtrack a little bit here, because you talk about it so much in your book, and I highly suggest that people pick up Thriver Soup, but you really worked hard on the mental, spiritual, and physical aspects to get yourself into a place of more sync. What were some of the things that you did?
There are so many. That's why I wrote the book.
Well, why don't you give us a few tips? We don't want you to give the whole book away, but definitely some tips that people can look at and go, gosh, that's something I could start doing at home.
If somebody has a diagnosis of a chronic disease, I have 10 healing solutions. They're geared toward cancer, but a lot of them can be applied to just anybody with any chronic diagnosis or anybody who just wants to improve their lives. One of them is to get a supportive community around you, because research shows that those who feel highly supported tend to survive longer and have a better experience. Another is to work at eliminating processed foods from the diet, because processed foods lack vitality, and we need that vitality when we have a chronic disease. And I have a whole section in there about how to eat, what not to eat, how to cook. And it's not vegan or vegetarian or anything like that. I do talk about eating meat. I do talk about whole foods, plant-based, organic as much as possible diet. And when somebody eats like that, they're much more likely to feel better and function better. Another is to meditate. There is a study done in Australia showing that meditation inhibited the growth of tumors in 10% of those who meditated. That's better than the chemotherapy cure rate that I had. I mean,
it's a great
just phenomenal what
My
meditation can do.
Yeah, I mean, if you're one of the 10%, that makes a big difference.
Oh yeah. So I give a variety of meditation practices in my book that people can pick from, and a variety of prayer techniques that people can pick from, because I have a whole section on spirituality. Mm-hmm. So the book is divided up. I've got a section on chemotherapy, how to manage the side effects of chemotherapy to maximize the chemo and minimize the side effects. I have a section on surgery, and if the top 5 tips are followed, people who have surgery tend to get out of the hospital a day earlier and get off their pain medications much more quickly than they would otherwise. I can go into that if you want. Then I had a section on Okay, I'll talk about the sections first. Then I've got a section on the body, how to help the body to maximize the healing energies that you can contribute to it, how to eat, how to manage emotions to reach a place of emotional acceptance and health, how to manage the mind, because the mind is what gets us into trouble so many times, how to develop a spiritual practice if you don't have one, or how there's a variety that people can pick from. And then I have a section about spiritual guides, so people can look for a spiritual guide that they feel is most comfortable for them. And then I have a section on community type of ideas, how to interact in a community situation so that you can maximize the support you get. So when it comes to surgery can be terrifying because some people, as you probably know, don't come out of surgery. Mm-hmm. And if you've ever been faced with a difficult medical procedure, do you remember your heart sinking and your pulse rising, and you wonder what you're going to do and how you're going to get through it? Well, the tips can give somebody more confidence and things they can do to help themselves. For somebody who has cancer, a good idea is to don't use the morphine, ask for tramadol instead, because it does not suppress the immune system as much as morphine does. Another is I cite a physician who talked to me about studies done with homeopathy. This is a medical doctor promoting homeopathy to me, telling me how to use arnica homeopathy. And so I explain in the book how to do it before, during, and after surgery. And that helps the body to recover. There's more. The list goes on. One of the people who used these tips is Brad. He was in Portland, and he lived by himself, and he had a tumor growing in his lung. He didn't have people in his community thought he should just use natural means to get rid of the tumor, and he was afraid that wasn't going to be enough. And he didn't have family to support him. So he had to decide if he was really going to go forward with surgery and not have enough help when he got done. Well, he decided after reading the tips in Thriver Soup that he could go forward with the surgery because he could anticipate a quicker recovery. And the most important tip that he used for himself was a CV surgical support series that I recommend in my book that he listened to before, during, and after surgery. And among the subtle messages that it gives was, let your body absorb vital energy to heal itself. And he did get out of the hospital a day earlier, and he did get off his pain medications within a couple of days, and he's doing great now. So the tips really work, and I want to share these with people so that they have more options and less fear when dealing with a difficult diagnosis.
Yeah, I can understand just from my experience, and I didn't really have a whole lot of resources. It was quite some time ago. Just having, your book is filled with a lot of information. How did you get to the point of developing all this? Was it all through your own journey? Was it stuff that you researched afterwards? Because, it's like an encyclopedia of just great information.
Thank you. Yes, it is. It's like one woman calls it her toolbox. So when she has a question, sure, she goes to my book. So I did a ton of reading, and I also had an online blog with Caring Bridge, and people would contribute ideas there, and then I would look into the ideas. But mostly it was reading books, reading articles, going online and looking for stuff. And I had to be careful because I didn't want to put anything in my book that I didn't think was a quality suggestion. And I did find an amazing website where a chemist talks about what does and does not work for health in the body. It's a fantastic resource, and I have it in my book. And I just put everything together I could find and divided it up into the different categories and put it together. because I wanted to share with people so that they had the most number of options to give them some hope and some direction.
And I think that's so important, is having that hope and just faith in being able to walk through, if it's a cancer or some type of illness or some type of surgery, that you're going to be able to walk through that and come out the other side.
Yes. One woman who read the book sent a note to the friend who sent her the book, and she wrote, as I opened Thriver Soup, I flipped over a few pages and stopped on page 79. Right there, outlined with specific questions for particular physicians, was the key to a much more successful and informative consult with the radiology oncologist. Heidi's book is helping us in miraculous ways. And another woman is Sheila, and she has Lou Gehrig's disease. And she writes, I read Thriver Soup because I'm going through my own war zone with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. I need all the help that I can get, and Thriver Soup is helping me see that it is possible to get to the other side, even when everyone tells you that it is impossible. She says, I'm now guarding my health, clearing out stress, eating wholesome food, adding supplements, meditating, finding alternative healing methods, taking naps, pursuing dreams, and living her life. And she has already lived twice as long as the doctors predicted because she's doing the things that she's read about in Thriver Soup. Now that thrills me because that's why I wrote the book. I want people to live longer and live healthier and be happier and have healed lives. That is so gratifying for me.
So I have to ask, Heidi, we've got a few more minutes here. I have to ask, how did you determine that stress was something that you needed to eliminate from your life?
Because I had tried so many other things and the cancer just kept coming back. So it was kind of a process of elimination. And it was also, it was something that I did not want to do because I knew it would create a different kind of stress because I still had kids at home and I had no place to go. But I had done everything else. And I figured that I had to give this a try because if I didn't survive, then it didn't matter where I was living. My kids were not going to have a mother. So this was a last-ditch effort to save my life. And that, I think, combined with everything else, is what flipped the switch in my body.
That made things turn around and go in a different direction. I mean, congratulations to you. Obviously, what you're doing is working. I mean, because here you've been cancer-free for so long. And I think it really is a testament to just being able to, again, have that faith in yourself, have hope, and then also you have such great resources that people can pick and choose which ones they want to use for themselves during their own journey.
Yes. I'm so happy to have this available for people, and I'm so happy that it's really helping people. It's thrilling.
I bet. Especially when you get those letters and you've got people saying, hey, I use this portion and it's helping me so much, or I followed this portion of your book and it gave me this inspiration. I mean, it would, I think, make anyone really, happy to hear that.
Yes, it does. So it's got over 250 healing solutions in it. It's endorsed by a surgeon and a radiology oncologist. It's traditionally published. And I have a weekly blog where I talk about more healing ideas. In fact, this week I just posted about how to figure out if your eggs are healthy eggs or not. And I got a little video to go with it. And the book is Thriver Soup, ThriverSoup.com. And my name is Heidi Bright, Bright. The book is available wherever books are sold. If you get a copy from my website, I will personally sign it for you. And you can sign up for my weekly blog, Thriver Soup Thursdays. And anybody who signs up for my blog, I give them a free copy of my top 10 healing solutions.
Well, fabulous. Heidi, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Marianne. Thank you.
Well, that's the end of our time today. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.